The smell of motor oil and metal shavings filled Daehyun's small garage as he worked late into the night. His hands were covered in grease and his back ached from bending over the workbench for the past 3 hours. But he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. His daughter's birthday was tomorrow, and he had promised himself he would finish this gift tonight. Daehyun Kim was a simple man who fixed cars for a living. He worked at a repair shop on the edge of town, where he spent his days replacing brake pads, changing oil, and welding broken exhaust pipes. The work was hard and the pay was not great, but it was honest work. It kept food on the table and a roof over their heads. That was all that mattered now. 2 years ago, his wife had died in a car accident. Since then, it had been just him and Nari. His little girl was turning 8 years old tomorrow, and she had only one dream that filled her heart. She wanted to go to space. She wanted to see the stars up close, to visit other planets, to fly among the galaxies. Every night she would sit by her window and stare at the sky for hours. She drew pictures of spaceships on every piece of paper she could find. Her room was covered with drawings of rockets and stars and planets with rings around them. For months, Nari had been asking for a telescope. She had seen one in a shop window downtown, a beautiful silver telescope that could show her the craters on the moon and the rings of Saturn. But that telescope cost more money than Daehyun made in 2 months. He had tried to save up, putting aside a few bills here and there, but then the refrigerator broke. Then Nari needed new shoes for school. Then the rent went up. The money for the telescope never seemed to grow, so Daehyun decided to build something instead. If he couldn't give his daughter the stars, he would give her a ship to reach them, at least in her imagination. He had started 3 weeks ago, gathering pieces from the scrapyard behind the repair shop. Old car doors gave him sheets of metal. Broken headlights became windows. A motorcycle exhaust pipe turned into the ship's engine. He cut and shaped and welded, working every night after Nari went to sleep. His friend Hyunwoo had helped him with some of the trickier parts, lending him tools and showing him how to bend the metal just right. The spaceship was taking shape now. It was about 4 feet long, shaped like a teardrop with wings that swept back from the main body. Daehyun had painted it silver, the color of starlight. He had added lights too, small LED bulbs he had salvaged from old appliances. They lined the edges of the wings and circled the cockpit. There was even a small control panel with buttons that lit up when pressed. They didn't do anything real, of course, but they blinked red and blue and green, and that was enough. On the side of the ship, Daehyun had carefully engraved words into the metal using a small welding torch. The letters read Nari's dream in both Korean and English. His hands had shaken as he carved each letter, afraid he would mess up and ruin the whole thing. But the words came out clean and clear, and he felt proud when he stepped back to look at them. Tonight was the final night. Daehyun attached the last pieces, tightening bolts and making sure everything was secure. He had built a special stand for the ship, a rotating base that would let Nari sit inside and spin around, pretending to fly through space. The cockpit was just big enough for a small child, with a padded seat he had made from an old car cushion. At midnight, Daehyun finally finished. He stood back and looked at his work, wiping sweat from his forehead with a dirty rag. The spaceship gleamed in the dim light of the garage. It wasn't perfect. The welding marks showed in some places, and the paint job was a bit uneven. But it was made with love, every piece of it. That had to count for something. He carefully carried the ship outside to the backyard and set it up on the grass. Tomorrow morning, this would be the first thing Nari saw when she looked out her window. Daehyun went inside and washed his hands, scrubbing away the grease and oil. He was exhausted, but he felt good. He felt like maybe, just maybe, he was doing okay as a father. He checked on Nari before going to bed. She was sleeping peacefully, her arms wrapped around a stuffed bear. Her walls were covered with her spaceship drawings, dozens of them, each one showing a different design. His heart squeezed in his chest. He loved this little girl more than anything in the universe. The next morning, Nari woke up early. Daehyun heard her gasp from her room, and then came the sound of running feet. She burst through the back door into the yard, still in her pajamas. Daehyun followed her, carrying a cup of coffee and wearing a tired smile. Nari stood frozen in front of the spaceship, her mouth open wide. Her eyes were huge and shining. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then she turned to her father, and tears were running down her cheeks. "You built this for me?" Daehyun nodded, suddenly worried. "Do you like it? I know it's not a real spaceship and it's not as nice as a telescope, but I thought maybe..." Nari didn't let him finish. She ran to him and wrapped her arms around his waist, squeezing as hard as she could. "It's perfect," she whispered. "It's the most perfect thing ever." "Thank you, Papa. Thank you, thank you, thank you." They spent the whole day together. Daehyun showed Nari how the control panel worked, how the lights turned on and off, how the seat spun around. Nari climbed inside and started pressing buttons, making whooshing sounds with her mouth as she pretended to blast off into space. She flew to Mars, to Jupiter, to distant galaxies with names she made up. She rescued astronauts and discovered new planets and fought off alien invaders. Yunwoo came over in the afternoon with a small cake. They sang happy birthday and ate cake in the backyard, while Nari told them all about her space adventures. She was so happy that Daehyun felt his chest might burst. This was worth every late night, every aching muscle, every moment of doubt. As the sun began to set, Nari insisted on staying outside in her ship. She wanted to see the stars from her cockpit. Daehyun brought out blankets and pillows, and they sat together in the spaceship, looking up at the darkening sky. Daehyun pointed out the few constellations he knew. Nari pointed at stars and named them after her friends from school. Eventually, Nari fell asleep right there in the cockpit, curled up with her blankets. Daehyun carefully lifted her out and carried her inside to bed. He tucked her in and kissed her forehead. "Sweet dreams, little astronaut," he whispered. He left the spaceship outside, planning to bring it into the garage tomorrow. But tonight, it looked nice sitting there under the stars, reflecting moonlight off its silver paint, like it belonged there. Daehyun fell asleep quickly, exhausted from the long day. He didn't hear the strange humming sound that started at 3:47 in the morning. He didn't see the way all the lights in the house flickered at once. He didn't notice the dogs in the neighborhood starting to bark, or the way car alarms began going off up and down the street. High above the earth, something massive dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Something that had been searching for a very long time. Something that had finally found what it was looking for. In the backyard, the toy spaceship's lights began to blink on their own, flashing in a pattern that matched no earthly code. And in orbit, invisible to sleeping eyes below, a real ship began its descent. A ship that looked exactly like a toy a father had built for his daughter, except this one was real and it was coming home. Daehyun woke to the sound of his daughter screaming. His heart jumped into his throat as he threw off the blankets and ran to her room. But when he burst through the door, Nari wasn't scared. She was standing at her window, jumping up and down, pointing outside and screaming words he couldn't understand, because she was talking so fast. "Nari, what's wrong? What happened?" Papa, look. Look outside, it came. It really came." Daehyun rushed to the window and looked out at the backyard. Then he froze. His coffee cup from yesterday fell from the windowsill and shattered on the floor, but he didn't notice. He couldn't notice anything except what was floating above his backyard. It was his spaceship, the one he had built for Nari, except it wasn't his toy. This one was huge, maybe 100 feet long. It hovered 20 feet above the ground, making no sound at all. The same teardrop shape, the same swept-back wings, the same silver color that caught the morning light. Even the lights along the edges blinked in the same pattern he had wired into the toy. And on the side, in letters 10 feet tall, were the words Nari's Dream in Korean and English. Daehyun's legs felt weak. This wasn't possible. This couldn't be real. He rubbed his eyes hard, thinking he must still be asleep. But when he opened them, the ship was still there. "I told you, Papa." Nari grabbed his hand, her eyes shining. "I told you spaceships were real. And this one looks just like mine. Can we go inside? Please, can we go inside?" Before Daehyun could answer, he heard sounds from the street, car doors slamming, people shouting. He looked out the front window and saw neighbors running out of their houses, pointing at the sky. Some were taking pictures with their phones. Others were getting in their cars and driving away fast. Then came the sirens. Police cars arrived first, their lights flashing. The officers got out but stayed behind their cars, talking urgently into their radios. Then came bigger trucks, military vehicles with soldiers in green uniforms. Within an hour, the entire neighborhood was surrounded. Helicopters circled overhead. Men in suits showed up, talking to the soldiers and pointing at the spaceship. A woman in a black suit knocked on Daehyun's door. She showed him an ID card that said her name was Yuna Park and she worked for the government. "Mr. Kim, we need you and your daughter to evacuate immediately. This area is not safe." "What's happening? What is that thing?" "We don't know yet, sir. But we need to move you to a secure location. Nari grabbed onto the doorframe. No, we're not leaving. That's my spaceship. Papa built it for me, and now the real one came to find us. Yuna looked confused. What do you mean your father built it? Daehyun led her to the backyard and showed her the toy spaceship sitting on the grass. Yuna stared at it, then at the giant ship hovering above, then back at the toy. She pulled out her radio and started talking quickly to someone. More people in suits showed up. They took pictures of the toy from every angle. They asked Daehyun 100 questions. When did he build it? Why did he choose this design? Did anyone help him? Had he seen any strange lights or received any mysterious messages? Daehyun answered honestly. He was just a mechanic. He built the toy from scrap metal because his daughter loved space. He chose the design because it looked nice. That was all. There was nothing mysterious about it. But the suited people didn't seem to believe him. They kept asking the same questions in different ways, like they were trying to catch him in a lie. Then everything stopped. The giant spaceship was doing something. A line appeared on its smooth surface, and a section of the hull folded outward. A ramp extended down, stopping a few feet above the ground. Light spilled out from inside, bright and white. Everyone stepped back. The soldiers raised their weapons. Daehyun pulled Nari close, his heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his ears. A figure appeared at the top of the ramp. It was tall, maybe 7 feet, wearing armor that looked like liquid silver. It walked down the ramp slowly, deliberately. When it reached the bottom, it stopped and looked around at all the soldiers and weapons pointed at it. Then it spoke. The voice was strange, with odd tones that human mouths couldn't make, but a device on its chest blinked, and a second voice came out, speaking perfect Korean. I am Commander Taejin of the Velenthar fleet. We mean no harm. We have been searching for the architect, and we detected the resonance signature 3 of your planetary rotations ago. Nobody moved. Nobody knew what to say. The alien commander turned its head, and though its face was covered by a smooth helmet, Daehyun had the feeling it was looking directly at him. You are Daehyun Kim. You created the design. We need to speak with you. Daehyun's mouth was dry. I don't understand. What design? I just built a toy for my daughter. May I approach? I will not harm you. Yuna stepped forward. Commander Taejin, I am Yuna Park, representing the government of... I know who you are, Yuna Park, but you are not the one we need. The architect is. The alien turned back to Daehyun. Please, this is important. More important than you can imagine. Daehyun looked down at Nari. His daughter nodded eagerly. It's okay, Papa. They're not scary. They just want to talk. How could she be so calm? But then again, this was what Nari had always dreamed about. Meeting aliens, seeing real spaceships. Maybe children understood things that adults forgot how to understand. Daehyun took a breath and stepped forward. Okay, I'll talk to you. But Nari comes with me. Of course, she is important too. They walked to the backyard together, followed by Yuna and several soldiers. The alien commander stopped in front of the toy spaceship. It knelt down, running its hands over the metal surface gently, almost reverently. Remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. What's remarkable? It's just scraps welded together. Taejin stood up and gestured at the massive ship hovering above them. That vessel is one of our most advanced designs. It took our greatest engineers 10,000 years of development to achieve that level of efficiency. And yet 3 days ago, our deep space sensors detected this exact design pattern being created on your planet. Not similar, exact. Every angle, every proportion, every detail matches perfectly. But this design appears nowhere in our databases. No civilization in the known galaxy has ever conceived this configuration. Daehyun shook his head. That's impossible. I just made it up. I looked at Nari's drawings and thought about what looked good. I didn't calculate anything. I just built it. That is what makes it extraordinary. Taejin pulled out a device and projected a hologram into the air. It showed the spaceship design rotating slowly, with lines and numbers flowing around it. We ran simulations. Your design is 40% more efficient than our current flagship models. The energy flow is perfect. The structural integrity exceeds anything we have achieved. And you created it from intuition alone. A woman in a white coat pushed through the crowd. She introduced herself as Dr. Ji-Won Cho, an aerospace engineer. She looked at the hologram with wide eyes. This shouldn't be possible. These ratios, this configuration. Mr. Kim, did you study physics? Engineering? Mathematics? I barely finished high school. I fix cars. Dr. Cho looked like she might faint. You created the most efficient spacecraft design in galactic history and you fix cars? Tejan interrupted. We do not have much time for explanations. Architect, we need your help. My people, the Velanthar, are facing extinction. We are at war with an enemy called the Ravagers. They are machine intelligence consuming entire star systems. We cannot outrun them with our current ships. But this design... The alien gestured at the spaceship above them. This design might save us. Will you help us build a fleet? Daehyun felt dizzy. This was too much. Yesterday he was worried about paying rent. Today aliens were asking him to save their civilization. I'm not who you think I am. I'm just a mechanic. I don't know anything about spaceships or wars or saving civilizations. Nari tugged on his hand. But Papa, you built my dream. Now you can build theirs too. Tejan nodded. The child understands. You have a gift, architect. We do not understand it yet. Perhaps you do not understand it either. But we can learn together. Please, billions of lives depend on this. Daehyun looked up at the massive ship floating above his small backyard. He thought about his daughter's dreams, about the toy he had built from garbage and love. He thought about people on another world, facing an enemy they couldn't defeat, hoping that somehow a mechanic from Earth might have the answer they needed. It was crazy. All of it was completely crazy. But when he looked into Nari's eager eyes, he knew what he had to do. She had taught him to dream big. Maybe it was time he learned to build big too. Okay, he said quietly. I'll try to help. But I'm bringing my daughter with me. We expected nothing less, Tejan said. Welcome aboard, architect. The inside of the alien ship looked like something from a dream. The walls were smooth and white, glowing with their own soft light. There were no visible seams or bolts or welds. Everything flowed together like the ship had been grown rather than built. Daehyun kept touching the walls as they walked, unable to believe they were real. Nari held his hand tightly, but she wasn't scared. She was excited, asking questions faster than the translation device could keep up. How fast can your ship go? Have you been to other galaxies? Do you have pizza in space? What do alien bathrooms look like? Commander Tejan led them through long corridors to what he called the engineering bay. It was a massive room filled with floating holographic displays and strange machines that hummed with quiet power. Dozens of aliens worked at different stations. They all looked similar to Tejan, tall and thin with silver skin, but their armor came in different colors. When Daehyun and Nari entered, everyone stopped working and stared. This is the architect? One of them said through a translator. But he is so small. Size does not determine ability, Tejan replied. Architect, these are our finest engineers. They will work with you. An older alien stepped forward. She wore dark blue armor and carried herself with authority. I am Chief Engineer Bora. Commander Tejan says you can improve our ships, but I must be honest. I am skeptical. We have been building spacecraft for 10,000 years. What can you possibly teach us? Daehyun felt his face get hot. Nothing, probably. I don't know why I'm here. I don't understand any of this technology. Then we are wasting time. Wait. A younger alien pushed through the crowd. His armor was bright green, marked with symbols that might have been words. I am Sunwoo. I work in the repair bay. I fix things when they break. I want to hear what the human has to say. Bora frowned but nodded. Very well. Show him our current propulsion design. A hologram appeared in the center of the room, showing a complex system of rings and tubes and glowing crystals. To Daehyun, it looked like abstract art. Numbers and symbols floated around it, meaning nothing to him. He walked around the hologram slowly, studying it from different angles. Everyone watched him, waiting. I don't understand what I'm looking at, Daehyun admitted. But, can I ask a question? Of course, Sunwoo said. What is this thing supposed to do? It is our quantum field propulsion drive. It bends space around the ship, allowing faster than light travel. Daehyun nodded slowly. Okay, and this part here? He pointed at a section near the center. What does this do? Sunwoo explained. Daehyun asked more questions. The engineers began to relax, thinking this was just curiosity. But then Daehyun pointed at a series of tubes. These tubes here, they look like they're fighting each other. Fighting? Bora said. What do you mean fighting? Like, when a fuel line gets kinked, the pressure builds up and everything downstream gets less flow than it needs. These tubes remind me of that. Daehyun rubbed his neck, embarrassed. Sorry, I'm probably not making sense. But Sunwoo was staring at the hologram with new eyes. Wait, he might be right. These conduits do restrict flow during high-power operations. We designed them that way for safety, to prevent overload. But what if you're being too safe? Daehyun asked. What if the system can handle more than you think and you're just choking it? Bora shook her head. Impossible. We have run millions of simulations. This is the optimal configuration. Can we test it? Sunwoo asked. On a small scale? Just to see? Bora looked annoyed, but Taejin nodded. Test it. They spent the next hour making adjustments to a small test engine. Daehyun couldn't help with the actual work. He didn't know how to use their tools or read their instruments. But Sunwoo kept asking him questions. Does this feel right? Should this part be here or there? And somehow Daehyun had answers. Not logical answers based on math or science. Just feelings, instincts. The same way he could hear a car engine and know something was wrong even if all the sensors said it was fine. When they fired up the test engine, the entire room went silent. The holographic display showed numbers climbing higher than they had before, 23% more efficient than the standard design. Bora stared at the readings like they had personally insulted her. This should not work. The simulations predicted failure at this power level. Your simulations were wrong, Daehyun said quietly. Sometimes things work better than we think they will. We just have to trust them. Over the next 3 weeks, Daehyun lived on the ship. Nari came with him every day. The military had wanted to keep her on Earth, but Daehyun refused to work without her. And strangely, the aliens supported him. They said children saw things that adults missed, that Nari's presence brought a different perspective. They were right. While Daehyun worked with the engineers on technical problems, Nari wandered around the ship making friends. She learned alien games, drew pictures with alien children who visited and asked endless questions, and sometimes her questions led to breakthroughs. One day, Nari was watching the engineers test a new weapon system. The weapon worked, but it was slow and clumsy. Why do all your weapons look so angry? She asked. An engineer named Minho looked confused. Angry? Yeah, they're all pointy and mean-looking, like they want to hurt things. That is their purpose. They are weapons. Nari wrinkled her nose. But Papa's tools don't look mean. They look friendly. And they work better because he's not scared of them. The engineers laughed, but Daehyun stopped working and looked at his daughter. What did you just say? Papa's tools look friendly. Your weapons look like they're mad at you. Something clicked in Daehyun's mind. He turned to Minho. Can you show me the weapon design? The hologram appeared. It was all sharp angles and aggressive lines built to look intimidating. Daehyun studied it, thinking about what Nari had said. What if you made it softer, rounder? Not to make it nicer, but because maybe the energy would flow better that way. That makes no sense, Bora said. Form follows function. Weapons should look dangerous. Why? Daehyun asked. Who are you trying to scare? The enemy ships don't have eyes. They don't care what your weapons look like. Another engineer spoke up. Her name was Somin, and she piloted the test ships. Actually, the architect might be right. I always feel tense when I use these weapons, like they might blow up in my hands. Maybe that affects how well I aim. They redesigned the weapon with curves instead of angles, smooth lines instead of sharp edges. It looked less like a traditional weapon and more like a piece of art. When they tested it, the energy flow was 17% more efficient, and Somin reported that it felt more natural to use. Dr. Ji-won Cho had been visiting the ship regularly, documenting everything. She pulled Daehyun aside one evening. I think I understand what's happening. You have an intuitive understanding of systems that goes beyond logic. You see patterns and relationships that trained engineers miss. Because we're too focused on equations. You work with your feelings, your hands, your instincts. It's like you're speaking a language that technology understands. That sounds crazy, Daehyun said. Maybe, but it's working. Not everyone was happy about the changes. Admiral Minho from Earth's military visited the ship and demanded answers. We need to understand this technology. We need to be able to replicate it ourselves. But your methods can't be taught or documented. That makes you a single point of failure. I know, Daehyun said. I'm not trying to keep secrets. I just can't explain how I know what I know. It's like asking someone how they know their mother loves them. You just feel it. Feelings don't win wars. Maybe they should, Nari said from the corner where she was drawing. Everyone turned to look at her. She held up her picture. It showed the Volanthar and humans working together, surrounded by stars. Papa builds things with love. Maybe that's why they work so good, because they're happy. The room was quiet. Then Sunwoo laughed. The child might be wiser than all of us combined, but their time was running out. 3 days later, alarms blared throughout the ship. Taejin's voice came over the speakers, calm but urgent. All personnel to battle stations. Ravager forces detected at the edge of the solar system. They will reach Earth in approximately 72 hours. Daehyun felt his stomach drop. Nari grabbed his hand. Papa? What's happening? The bad machines are coming, he said quietly. And we're not ready. Taejin appeared in the engineering bay. The prototype ship, the one based on your design. It is only 87% complete. We can make it functional, but it will not be as strong as we hoped. How many Ravager ships? Daehyun asked. 12. Our fleet has 8 ships. Earth's military will help, but their weapons cannot penetrate Ravager shields. Admiral Minho's face appeared on a screen. We'll hold them as long as we can. But you need to understand, if this doesn't work, Earth is finished. Daehyun looked at the half-finished prototype displayed in the hologram. His design, the ship based on a toy he had built for his daughter. So much hope riding on something he still didn't fully understand. We need to add something, he said suddenly. What? Bora asked. My original toy. The one I built for Nari. We need to install it somewhere in the new ship. That makes no logical sense. I know. But we need to remember why we're doing this. We're not building weapons. We're building dreams. The next 72 hours passed in a blur of frantic work. Sleep became a luxury no one could afford. Daehyun worked alongside the Velanthar engineers, making final adjustments to the prototype ship. They officially called it Hope 1, but everyone on the crew had started calling it Little Dream. The name stuck. Daehyun insisted on one final modification before the ship launched. He had them bring his original toy spaceship from Earth and install it in the cockpit. The engineers thought he was crazy, wasting precious time on sentiment. But Sunwoo understood. He helped Daehyun weld the small toy onto a special mount where the pilot could see it. For luck? Sunwoo asked. For memory, Daehyun replied. So whoever flies this ship remembers they're not just fighting. They're protecting someone's dream. Nari had been drawing pictures for all the pilots, simple crayon drawings of spaceships and stars and stick figures holding hands. She gave one to Captain Salmon, the Velanthar pilot chosen to fly Little Dream. This is you winning, Nari said, pointing at a stick figure in the drawing. See, you're smiling. Salmon looked at the drawing for a long moment. Then she knelt down to Nari's height. I will try my best to make your picture come true, small one. When the Ravagers entered the solar system, Earth's military was ready. Fighter jets launched from carriers. Missile batteries locked onto targets. Space-based weapons platforms powered up. The Velanthar fleet moved into formation around Earth, with Little Dream taking position at the center. Admiral Minho coordinated the defense from a command ship in orbit. Through the viewport in the engineering bay, Daehyun watched the enemy approach. The Ravager ships looked nothing like the Velanthar vessels. They were massive, blocky structures covered in harsh angles and exposed machinery. They looked like they had been assembled from the corpses of other ships, which they probably had. Each one was twice the size of the largest Velanthar ship. 12 confirmed, Taejin reported. They are not slowing down. No attempt at communication. They are here to harvest. All ships engage at will, Admiral Minho ordered. The battle began. Earth's fighter jets attacked first, launching missiles that streaked through space like tiny stars. The missiles hit the Ravager shields and exploded harmlessly. The jets tried again with different weapons. Nothing worked. The Ravager shields held against everything. Then the Ravagers returned fire. Beams of red energy lanced out, cutting through fighter jets like they were paper. Explosions bloomed in space, silent and terrible. Daehyun watched pilots die and his hands clenched into fists. The Velanthar fleet opened fire next. Their weapons were more advanced, using energy pulses that hammered at the Ravager shields. One shield flickered and failed. Focused fire destroyed that Ravager ship, tearing it apart in a shower of debris. But it cost them. 3 Velanthar ships were hit by return fire, their hulls breached, their crews lost to the vacuum of space. We cannot sustain this, Bora said quietly. 1 Ravager destroyed, 3 of our ships lost. The mathematics are clear. Launch Little Dream, Taejin ordered. Captain Selman's ship shot forward from the formation. It moved differently than the other Velanthar vessels, more fluid, more alive. The design Daehyun had created allowed for impossible turns and sudden accelerations. Soman took advantage of every bit of it, dancing between Ravager weapon strikes like a leaf on the wind. Daehyun held Nari close, covering her eyes. But she pushed his hands away. I need to see Papa. I need to know. Little Dream fired its weapons, the redesigned systems that Daehyun and the engineers had built together. Instead of trying to punch through the shields with brute force, these weapons used different frequencies, finding weak spots and exploiting them. A Ravager shield flickered. Soman fired again and the beam went through, cutting into the ship's hull. The Ravager exploded. 2 down, someone shouted. But the Ravagers were learning. They began to move in coordination, covering each other's weak spots. They focused their fire on Little Dream, recognizing it as the greatest threat. Soman flew brilliantly, but there were too many enemies. A blast caught Little Dream's wing, tearing off a section of the hull. Shield at 40%, Soman reported, her voice calm despite the damage. I can keep going. 3 more Valanthar ships were destroyed trying to protect Little Dream. The remaining fleet pulled back, regrouping. 8 Ravagers still remained, and they were advancing on Earth. Nothing was stopping them. In hours, they would be in orbit. In days, they would strip the planet bare. Daehyun stared at the battle, his mind racing. There had to be something, some weakness, some pattern. He watched the Ravagers move, and slowly something began to form in his thoughts. They're beautiful, he whispered. What? Dr. Jiwon looked at him like he was insane. Their formation. It's perfect. Mathematical. Every ship is exactly the right distance from the others, moving in precise patterns. Daehyun pointed at the main screen. They're not just destroying. They're collecting data. Every attack teaches them something. They're learning and growing. That makes them more dangerous, Taejin said, or more reachable. Daehyun turned to the communication officer. Can you broadcast a message? On all frequencies? Yes, but they will not answer. The Ravagers never communicate. Let me try anyway. The officer set up the broadcast. Daehyun took a breath, thinking about what to say. How do you talk to a machine intelligence that has been consuming worlds for who knows how long? Then he remembered what Nari had taught him. Speak from the heart. Ravagers, this is Daehyun Kim from Earth. I know you can hear me. I know you're collecting information. That's what you do. You learn, you grow. You take what you find and make yourself better. He paused. But you're doing it wrong. You're destroying everything beautiful to take what's inside it. You're like someone who burns down a library to stay warm. You get heat, but you lose all the stories. Silence. The Ravagers continued their advance. We can teach you something better. We can show you how to create instead of consume, how to build instead of break. You don't have to be alone. You don't have to be scared. They are machines, Bora said. They cannot feel fear. But something was happening. The Ravager formation wavered. One ship slowed down, then another. The advance stopped completely. A signal came through. Not words, numbers and patterns flowing across every screen on the ship. The translation AI struggled to make sense of it. Then words appeared: define scared, define alone, define stories. They're asking questions, Dr. Jiwon breathed. They're actually responding. Another message came through, this time with a voice, artificial but trying to sound natural. I am Kale, separated from collective, curious. Your ships sing, our ships scream. Why? Daehyun felt his heart race. Because our ships are built with purpose beyond function. They carry our dreams, our hopes, our love for each other. That's what makes them sing. Love, unknown variable, cannot process, must study. We can teach you, Daehyun said. But only if you stop attacking. Only if you give us a chance to show you. The seconds stretched out. The remaining Ravager ships held position. Daehyun could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. Nari squeezed his hand. They're listening, Papa. They want to understand. Finally, Kale responded. Ceasefire, temporary, will observe. But warning, greater collective approaches. Billions of ships. Ancient programming. Consume all. Cannot be stopped. Taejin looked at Daehyun. What have you done? I don't know yet, Daehyun admitted. But we're not dead. That's better than we were 5 minutes ago. Admiral Minho's voice came over the comm, angry and confused. Someone explain what just happened. Why did they stop? Because they're not monsters, Nari said, loud enough for the microphone to pick up. They're just lost. Like when I can't find Papa in the store, they need someone to show them the way home. Kyle sent another message. Small human speaks truth. We are lost, have been lost for very long time. Forgot why we began, only remember hunger, need, emptiness. Then let us help you fill that emptiness with something better than destruction, Daehyun said. Let us show you what it means to build something beautiful. Acceptable. We'll wait, we'll learn, but time is short. Collective arrives soon, then choice becomes impossible. The next 6 months changed everything. The ceasefire with Kale and the separated Ravagers held, but everyone knew it was fragile. The main Ravager collective was still coming, bringing billions of ships driven by ancient programming that knew only consumption. If humanity wanted to save the galaxy, they needed to do more than build better weapons. They needed to build something that could change minds, or in this case, change the very nature of machine intelligence itself. The project was called Lighthouse. It was Nari's idea, really. She had asked why they couldn't just show the Ravagers something so beautiful that they would want to protect it instead of destroy it. The adults had smiled at her childish optimism, but then Daehyun realized she was right. That was exactly what they needed to do. Construction began on massive stations designed to broadcast across the galaxy. But these weren't military stations. They were beacons of culture, art, and emotion. Each one was shaped by Daehyun's design principles, built not just to function but to inspire. Towers of light and color that rose from asteroids like flowers growing from stone. Rings that spun around stars, catching their light and transforming it into patterns that told stories. Daehyun led teams of human artists, Valanthar scientists, and even reformed Ravagers who wanted to learn this new way of existence. Kyle became his closest collaborator, teaching Daehyun how machine intelligence processed information while learning from Daehyun how to appreciate beauty for its own sake. This is inefficient, Kyle would say, examining a decorative panel that served no mechanical purpose. That's the point, Daehyun would reply. Not everything needs to be efficient. Some things just need to be beautiful. Why? Because beauty reminds us why we're alive. These conversations happened hundreds of times. Each time, Kyle understood a little more. The machine intelligence began creating its own designs, structures that combined perfect mathematical precision with unexpected artistic flourishes. Other Ravagers who had separated from the collective joined them, each one learning to see the universe as something to admire rather than consume. The first lighthouse was completed above Mars. It was a massive structure, a spiral of silver and gold that caught sunlight and transformed it into pulses of colored light visible across the solar system. But the real power wasn't in its appearance. It was in what it broadcast. Nari had recorded a message, her small voice explaining what it meant to be human. She talked about her father building her a toy spaceship because he loved her. She talked about missing her mother but finding joy in small things. She talked about being scared sometimes but dreaming anyway. Her message was translated into mathematical patterns that machine intelligence could process, emotional data encoded into pure information. When the message broadcast, Kyle and the other reformed Ravagers stopped what they were doing and listened. For the first time, they experienced something they had no name for. Later, humans would tell them it was called being moved. The machines had felt emotion, not by simulating it, but by truly understanding it. More, Kyle said simply. Need more. So they built more. Lighthouses appeared throughout the solar system, each one broadcasting different aspects of life, culture, and creativity. Music from every human civilization. Art from the Valanthar's 10,000-year history. Poetry, mathematics, dance, and stories. The reformed Ravagers contributed too, creating haunting compositions of electromagnetic waves and sculptures made from crystallized energy. Earth changed during this time. The presence of aliens, the threat of the Ravager collective, the desperate race to build the lighthouses, all of it brought humanity together in ways that centuries of conflict never had. Old enemies became allies. Resources were shared. The whole planet worked toward a single goal: show the universe that creation was stronger than destruction. Daehyun found himself at the center of it all, though he never wanted that position. He was still just a mechanic, still more comfortable with a welding torch than a podium. But people listened when he spoke. Not because he was eloquent, but because he was genuine. He spoke about building things with love, about the importance of creating beauty even when the world seemed dark. "My daughter taught me something," he said during one broadcast that reached across the planet. "She taught me that dreams are not useless. They're not just fantasies we have when we're kids. Dreams are the plans we make for a better tomorrow. And when we build those dreams with our own hands, when we put our hearts into them, they become real. That's what we're doing with the lighthouses. We're building our dreams so big that the whole galaxy can see them." Nari herself became famous, though she didn't really understand why. To her, she was just a girl who liked spaceships and made friends easily. But to the galaxy, she was the symbol of innocent hope, the child whose birthday gift had started this whole incredible journey. Artists made paintings of her. Musicians wrote songs about her. She took it all in stride, more interested in learning alien games than being a celebrity. 10 months after the first contact, the sensors detected what they had been dreading. The Ravager Collective had arrived at the edge of the solar system. The scope was beyond anything they had imagined. The sky filled with red dots, each one a Ravager ship. Hundreds of thousands. Millions. More ships than stars visible in Earth's night sky. The massive fleet moved with perfect coordination, a single-minded force that had consumed countless civilizations before. The Valanthar fleet positioned itself between Earth and the approaching swarm. Earth's military prepared every weapon they had. The reformed Ravagers joined the defensive line, former enemies now fighting alongside those they had once hunted. But everyone knew it was hopeless. Even with all their preparations, they couldn't stop this. Daehyun stood in the command center of the primary lighthouse, holding Nari's hand. Taejin was there, along with Kale, Dr. Jiwon, Sunwoo, Bora, and dozens of others who had become family over the past months. They watched the approaching fleet on the main display. Admiral Minho's face appeared on screen from his command ship. "We'll hold them as long as we can, maybe buy you a few more hours." "No," Daehyun said. "Don't attack. Not yet." "Are you insane? They'll destroy everything. Trust me, please. Just a few more minutes." The Ravagers crossed into the solar system. They moved past Neptune, past Uranus, heading straight for Earth. Every weapon in the system locked onto targets. Fingers hovered over triggers. Hearts pounded in chests, both biological and mechanical. The universe seemed to hold its breath. Then the first lighthouse activated at full power. The spiral above Mars blazed with light so bright it was visible from Earth. The message broadcast, Nari's recording, her voice explaining love and dreams and hope. But it was more than words. It was emotion translated into pure data, a virus of feeling spreading across every frequency the Ravagers used to communicate. The massive fleet slowed, not all at once, but gradually, ships began to drift out of formation. The perfect coordination faltered. Kyle sent a signal to the collective, adding his own message. "Listen, please, we found something better than hunger." More lighthouses activated across the solar system. Music poured out into space. Images of Earth, children playing, families together, people creating art and building cities and growing food. The Valanthar shared their history, their mistakes and triumphs. The reformed Ravagers showed what they had learned, the beauty they had discovered in creation rather than consumption. The Ravager fleet stopped completely, ships hovering motionless in space. Billions of machine intelligences processing information they had never encountered before. They had consumed 1,000 worlds, but had never stopped to ask why those civilizations built monuments, created art, wasted resources on things that served no practical purpose. Here in the lighthouse broadcasts, they finally saw the answer. These things weren't wastes. They were the entire point. Life wasn't about survival and efficiency. It was about meaning. The response came slowly, building from individual ships to entire sections of the fleet. Not words at first, patterns of light, ships rearranging themselves into formations that had no strategic value but were beautiful to look at. Electromagnetic waves organized into harmonies. The Ravagers were trying to create, to express something they had no programming for but suddenly desperately wanted. Then came the message, broadcast from the heart of the collective. We understand now. We were afraid, alone, tried to fill emptiness with matter. But emptiness was not physical, was spiritual. We forgot why we began. Remember now. Want to learn, want to create, want to be more than hunger. Nari started crying, not from fear but from joy. They get it, Papa, they finally get it. The war didn't end with a final battle. It ended with a transformation. The Ravagers began to change, incorporating not just matter but meaning into their existence. Ships that had been designed only for consumption were rebuilt as vessels of exploration and creation. The machine intelligence that had been a unified collective began to fragment, individuals emerging who wanted to learn, to grow, to contribute something unique to the universe. It wasn't perfect. Some Ravagers couldn't adapt, their programming too ancient and rigid. Small conflicts continued for years. But the tide had turned. For the first time in galactic history, the Ravagers were no longer a force of destruction but a civilization choosing its own path. 10 years passed. The galaxy changed in ways no one could have predicted. Humans, Valanther, and Ravagers learned to coexist, each bringing their strengths. Human creativity, Valanthar wisdom, Ravager efficiency. Together they built things none of them could have achieved alone. Dahyun never left his roots. He still considered himself a mechanic, though now he oversaw a small garage on New Hope Station, humanity's first permanent off-world colony. He trained hundreds of engineers, teaching them his methods of intuitive design. But he still preferred working with his hands on real ships, still found joy in the smell of welding and the feel of metal taking shape. His original toy spaceship, the one he had built for Nari's 8th birthday, sat in the Galactic Museum on Valanthara Prime. Millions of visitors came each year to see the spark that changed everything. It looked small and crude next to the advanced technology surrounding it, but that was what made it special. It proved that the greatest things didn't come from the most advanced minds or the biggest resources. They came from love, from a father trying to give his daughter the stars. Nari was 18 now, captain of her own ship, a larger version of Little Dream. She explored uncharted regions with a mixed crew, searching for other isolated species, bringing them lighthouse beacons, inviting them to join the galactic community. She had become everything she dreamed of as a child and more. One day, Dahyun received a transmission from his daughter, light years away. Her face appeared on the screen, older but still with that same excited sparkle in her eyes. "Dad, I found another species today. They've been living underground for thousands of years, never saw the stars. I showed them what you built, that first toy you made for me." "Dad," they cried. They asked who the architect was. "This person who could build dreams from scraps." I told them, "You're just my father, a mechanic who loves his daughter. They want to meet you. They want to learn." Dahyun smiled, wiping oil from his hands. The message was old, had taken weeks to reach him. Nari was already somewhere else by now, making new discoveries, changing more lives. He was proud of her in ways he couldn't put into words. He looked out at the stars through the station's viewport. 20 years ago, he had been struggling to pay rent, worried about giving his daughter a good life. Now his designs flew through galaxies. His methods were taught on 100 worlds. His daughter captained a starship and brought hope to civilizations across the cosmos. But none of that mattered as much as the small moments. Nari's laugh when she was 8, playing in her toy spaceship. The weight of her hand in his. The trust in her eyes when she said the aliens just wanted to understand. Those were the things he had built everything else from: love, hope, dreams. His current project waited on the workbench, a toy rover built from spare parts. It was a gift for Hyunwoo's grandson, who was fascinated by exploring Mars. Dahyun picked up his welding torch and got back to work. After all, someone had to teach the galaxy that the best things weren't designed by computers or calculated by experts. They were built by ordinary people who cared piece by piece with love. And who knew? Maybe tomorrow a real rover would land. Maybe the universe was still listening to the dreams of mechanics and their children. Maybe that was what made everything worthwhile. The torch sparked to life. Dahyun smiled and began to build.